Ready, second.
I've joined now.
Okay. Yeah, finally, Mr. Arvind.
Hi, I'm sorry. Just getting into.
We have all the speakers now, and we're waiting for the count of our participants to go up a little bit, and then we can start.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Mr. Arvind's based out of Bombay?
I'm in Pune.
Pune, okay.
I see Anurag has joined the another link, the team link. I'm not sure why.
Well, I can't actually see your name. Just a second. Should we start? Hello, everyone. A warm welcome to one and all. My name is Mamta, and I'm the Manager for Strategic Partnerships here at EduBridge Learning. I also have Nitin Ahire, a Marketing Manager, who will be my co-host and my support system for today's event. Let's begin this event with an introduction and why we are all here today. National Technology Day celebrates the achievements and contributions of Indians to science and technology. This day serves as a reminder of India breaking into the elite group of nations with nuclear weapons, amongst many other ideas and innovations over the years. History of this day takes us back to 1999, when the then Prime Minister, Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee, declared 11th May as a day of significant achievement for the country. With this in mind, let us look at this small video clip that explains the evolution of technology and contributions by Indians over the years to this field. Can you please play the video for us, Nitin?
Is the video playing?
Is the video playing? Yeah. Nitin, the video is not playing. Can you try to play that again?
Kenya. Shivanasamudra remained as the largest hydroelectric project in Asia for close to half a century. It led to the creation of the largest transmission line in the world in 1902 from Shivanasamudra to the Kola goldfields, covering 147 kilometers. Srinivasa Ramanujan found a formula for computing pi that converges rapidly. Ramanujan series is currently the basis for the fastest algorithms used to calculate pi. In a letter to Hardy, Ramanujan described several new functions that behave differently from known theta functions or modular forms and yet closely mimic them. These were the first ever examples of mock modular forms. His mock modular forms may unlock the secrets of black holes.
Yours truly, S. Ramanujan.
The Soviet Union surprised the world on October 4th when it launched the first artificial satellite, Sputnik 1, a small 83.6 kilogram metal sphere. Param 8000, considered to be India's first supercomputer, was indigenously built. Mangalyaan made India the first ever country to launch a satellite to Mars successfully in the first attempt. India also became the fourth country to launch a mission to Mars in the world. BrahMos cruise missile is the fastest missile in the world with a speed of Mach 2.8 to Mach 3. The team behind the AlphaGo artificial intelligence program announced that it had become the world's best Go player. PSLV C-37 successfully launched 104 satellites on a single flight. Google claims to have achieved quantum supremacy. We've just reached the hill, so there's only one thing that we can say for sure. The story of our journey to this point and the new ideas that brought us here is one of the greatest stories in existence. A story that is still continuing.
Wasn't that just amazing? So much learned from our history. Well, each topic for today's fireside chat was chosen keeping in mind the interest of the youth that want to understand the scope, opportunities, and growth in the technology sector in India. What better day to speak about the IT sector as a powerful economic force than the National Technology Day? And who better to talk to than the people managers and market leaders to shed light on the sustainability and future for the youth in this dynamic sector? It gives me tremendous contentment to be presenting the welcome note among the most venerated personalities who have won accolades and done great work in their respective fields. Before we begin, I had a small announcement. Unfortunately, Dr. Ankita Singh, Senior Vice President and Global Head of Asia at Signet Informatics, has tested COVID positive and hence won't be able to join us today. Starting with our esteemed speakers, I would like to introduce Mr. Rakesh Kumar. He is the Vice President of Digital HR Transformation Lead, Global HR Operations, Shared Services, and HR Technologies at EXL. With over 19 years of experience in IT, ITES, and BPO verticals with leading global organizations, Mr. Kumar works as a change agent in HR, bringing the agile values, principles, and tools to individuals, teams, and organizations, and is passionate about working on great products, especially on user experience and SaaS. He wishes to make a transition to more innovative, trustful, and team-centered ways of working. Thank you for joining us today, Mr. Kumar. We are excited to have you here.
Thank you, Anta.
Moving on, we have Mr. Arvind Somani, the Assistant Vice President at Curix Systems. Mr. Somani comes with a rich 21 plus years of experience in the recruitment vertical with focus on delivery management, operations, project management, international business development, and exports. He also loves managing various HR-related aspects like strategy, planning, budgeting, forecasting, delivery, appraisals, recruitment, training, and the whole ecosystem surrounding people, in short. Thank you for taking the time from your busy schedule for us, Mr. Somani. We look forward to your valuable inputs today.
Thank you, Mamta, and thank you for inviting me to this session.
Last but not the least, we have Mr. Revan De Silva, the Vice President, NA Cloud Growth Platform, India Country Lead from Capgemini, India. With an exciting and enriching 23 plus years of experience in overall IT consultancy, Mr. De Silva has worked in various roles, which have added to the breadth and depth of his experience, including service line management, client partnerships, delivery management, practice head, as well as technical and process consulting, amongst others. He is a technocrat at heart, with strong delivery and practice management experience. Thank you so much for joining us and agreeing to share your rich experience with us today, Mr. De Silva. I'm sure the participants here today will learn a lot from you.
Thank you, Mamta, and hi, everyone.
Great. Also present here today, a great personality who has been a strong support system through many years. This event would not be complete without us giving him a warm welcome. Mr. Kumar Anurag Pratap, the Vice President and Digital Inclusion and Sustainability Leader from Capgemini, India. Welcome aboard, Mr. Pratap. Thank you for sparing some time from your schedule to be here with us today. Your comments are always welcome.
Thank you, Chief.
Moving on, we have with us Mr. Girish Singhania, the CEO of EduBridge Learning. An IIM Bangalore alumni, Mr. Singhania comes from 15 years of strong operational background, having worked in one of the world's largest FMCG companies, Procter & Gamble, and then moved on to Edelweiss in Mumbai, where he worked with global financial investors to bring investments into the Indian market. The invaluable combination of financial as well as operations experience stand him in good stead to lead EduBridge Learning as its CEO. His greatest passion lies in unlocking the potential that each individual has and in enabling them to achieve their best. We look forward to your enthusiastic participation, sir, today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Mamta.
We also have a very dynamic Head of Strategic Partnership team at EduBridge Learning, Maya Gupta. Maya is a Manchester Business School graduate with Masters in Technology and Innovation Management. She is also a BEIT Gold Medalist from Pune University. She has more than 15 years cross-functional experience with strategic partnerships, business development, and marketing functions of organizations. Maya will also moderate the fireside chat for us today. Welcome, Maya. We are glad to have you here.
Thank you so much, Mamta.
Lastly, I would like to welcome all the participants who have taken the time to be here today, and I ensure this session will be profitable and fruitful for everyone. I request all the participants to please use the Q&A option available at the bottom of your screens to post your questions that we will try to address in the Q&A session after the fireside chat concludes. We will be recording the session and make it available through our social media channels for those who would like to share them within their network. For all of you interested in knowing more about the various IT courses offered at EduBridge, there is a special takeaway for you at the end. So wait till the end of the session. Well, moving on. The Technology Development Board announces a theme every year on this special day. And the theme for this year is Science and Technology for a Sustainable Future. And when we talk about the future of any sector, what better than focusing on the people working in it and working towards realizing the daily operations while creating aspiring visions and ideas for the future of this industry. As you all know, EduBridge Learning has been in the workforce development field for more than 11 years now and has trained more than 150,000 people across India into various sectors, where IT and ITES being one of the major verticals for the same. And that is why this event is so close to our hearts and the reason for hosting this event on this very special day. I would now like to request Girish sir to address the audience on venturing into the IT sector and also share EduBridge's experience so far in the IT sector. The stage is all yours, sir.
Thank you so much, Mamta. Very, very good and warm afternoon to all of you, all the potential students, all the students and all the dignitaries. It's great to have everyone. I think on this 11th of May, on the National Technology Day, there couldn't have been a better topic to talk about than talking about talent in technology, people in technology, and maybe even spending some time on talking about women in technology. As an organization at EduBridge, over the last couple of years, we have decided to focus a lot more on technology courses and courses that help the youth of India build careers in technology with various organizations. Some of them are on this panel itself today. Our idea is to be able to provide the latest state-of-the-art training tools and technology to the youth so that they can build careers in technology themselves. As we saw in the video, and as I'm sure we'll hear in the fireside chat, I think going forward, technology is the way. There is nothing in the world that we will be able to do without technology. If anything, this pandemic upon us has just expedited everything that technology has to offer, be it learning itself or be it delivery of various kinds of products or services. Technology is now at the forefront. And no matter where you are and what you belong to, it's something that you just cannot ignore anymore. The technology is something which is a part of our daily lives, and technology is something which will also determine our careers going forward. So we felt at EduBridge, this is probably the best topic to discuss on this Technology Day. And we couldn't think of a better panel than have Rakesh, Ravon, and Arvind join us along with Anurag. So it's great to have all of you. I'm really excited and looking forward to hear from all of you. So I won't take too much time and give my 2 cents, and I'll be happy to hear what the entire panel has to offer. Thank you so much, and really looking forward to this.
Thank you so much, sir. That is truly amazing. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. We're moving on. The moment we have all been waiting for. Maya, request you to start with the fireside chat. Over to you.
Well, thanks a ton, Mamta and Girish. It's an absolute pleasure for me to host this fireside chat, and I'm sure this will be fun and a great learning experience for all of us and, of course, our audience. Now, as Girish mentioned, and as we saw in the video as well, in this world, technology is not just an enabler of business. It is extremely core to business, irrespective of the industry. It is often the business itself. Traditional businesses like banking, insurance, healthcare, logistics, retail are now embracing digital and are transforming their business processes to incorporate technologies. So we are clearly moving towards a digital India. Now, digital technologies have become so integral to our business models and core processes that no organization can ignore them and still remain relevant. And this pandemic has clearly accelerated this digital transformation that was already in motion. So I request you all to shed some light on hiring trends, while we are in this era of digital transformations and, which has got accelerated even and which has become even more critical post-COVID. And do we expect hiring to skyrocket in the coming months and years? I would request Mr. Rakesh to take a go at this first, as to what he thinks are the key hiring trends that he witnesses, while driving this digital transformation at EXL. Over to you, Mr. Rakesh.
So before I start, thank you, Mamta, for the wonderful introduction. And good afternoon to all the students and working professionals from across India. I would also like to thank EduBridge India for inviting me on a fireside chat conversation with the key industry leaders like Anurag, Ravon, and Arvind, and on a special day, which is India Technology Day. Today, technology is a very big part of our life. The technology that we are using is the hard work of many scientists, workers, and engineers. And that's what we saw in the video right now. So India is now the second largest market in the world for digital consumers, and it's growing very, very fast. Falling costs have spurred digital adoptions. Business are now also going digital, but the adoption in every organization is, uneven kinds. Highly digitized sectors like IT and business process management like EXL could double their GDP contribution by 2025, right? So there is immense opportunity, guys. Growth could be even higher for newer digitizing sectors like Maya said, agriculture, healthcare, retail, logistics, and all data-driven insurance companies as well. But government need to invest more in the entire infrastructure so that business can nurture that new talent in the new technologies as well. It's a challenge, but when we all put it together, we can make it happen. digital can be one of the most inclusive drivers of India's future growth and prosperity. Now, with that, what Maya said on the hiring trends, we'll talk about the hiring trends. The COVID-19 pandemic disrupted labor markets globally during 2020. The short-term consequences were sudden and often severe. We all faced it. Millions of people were furloughed or lost their jobs, and others rapidly started adjusting to work from home, like all of us. Most of us are working from home right now. The pandemic also accelerated existing trends in the remote work, like e-commerce, automations, which is growing by 25% actually. The 2020 pandemic has forced hiring trends across industries to ramp up their acquisition models in order to meet ever-evolving challenges thrown up by the new normal of remote work. The role of technology and communication has become vital in the way of working. Like we all are through Zoom or Microsoft Teams, we all connect across the globe. That's how it's working right now. COVID-19 has shaped the demand of specific disciplines and skills across the IT job market. As a result, the industry is witnessing a significant change in hiring practices across the globe. A recent survey of IT leaders by Consumer Technology Association found that technological skills are going to be the candidate's secret weapon in a jobs market that's getting more competitive. If we go and study the employment outlook, which is published on the internet, it also talks about that hiring trends in technology will dominate in 2021. Skills requirement will take over traditional requirements. Augmented reality, which is AR technology used to create experiences in areas like gaming, interior designing, automobile sector, education will be the key. So that's what I wanted to highlight on the hiring trends. And that's what EXL is focusing on. And we are trying to get up for the new normal. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Rakesh. Mr. De Silva, can we hear your thoughts on hiring trends, please?
Hey, thanks, Maya, and hope everyone is keeping safe. Yeah, I think the Indian IT sector, or I think IT sectors across the globe, it's an absolute booming time right now. Never before in my last 3 years have I seen a demand that's actually chasing us today. So demand is very high, and the foundation for that is what you mentioned, right? All the companies are engaging, the end companies are engaging on massive transformations. How do we reach to the customers sitting at their homes? Online shopping, something that was known to us a lot, but the number of retail companies that are still not following or not had implemented online shopping at the start of the pandemic was still very high. So everybody is now rushing, let me build that mobile app, let me give an experience. For example, even to an experience like if you want to shop from home, can I try that dress from home? If you've seen the Titan eyeglasses, how you can try those out. So similar things like that. And the demand is across the board, all technology stacks. Like I personally look at custom software development. So all the way starting from the core Java, core .NET to the very high end of cloud native, microservices, Spark Scala, AI, all the underlying foundation technologies, there's a massive, almost 5x demand from what we were in 2019. 2020 was a lull year, but even if I compare to 2019, massive demand. In fact, I think the demand is far outstripping the supply. But what you will also notice is there is a demand for people who can be deployable day one. That is the key ask from the market. People who can be deployed day one, who can get their hands dirty. Because gone are the days wherein we would have a waterfall delivery with 6 months. You can learn on the job. Today you're talking about, hey, I'm deployed in next 2 weeks. There is one release going on, right? We are also looking at a lot of full stack people who can do UI, who can do middleware, who can look backend, whichever technology stack that you take. So those demands are peaking, and I'm sure people who are investing them in becoming full stack players, because technology is changing. It's very difficult to say A is in demand. Today it's A, tomorrow it's B. But if you are investing in becoming good full stack developers, there's a big market for all of them.
Great. Thank you, Mr. De Silva. Mr. Arvind, your thoughts?
Hi, Maya. Thanks. Good to be a part of this panel and talking about my experiences into what we have in store going forward in technology. So my experience has been with, I do a lot of reading and also look at other stuff which is in the market, but my experience has primarily been into technologies related to education, right? When I say education, it's not just for schools and colleges, but for corporates and enterprises where we do training for them. And like one of the points that Revan said, and I agree, is gone are the days when people would be hired from being just freshers and come in. That's important, but they need to be going full steam day one. That's the expectation. And that's also because of two reasons. One is there's a demand supply problem of getting the right people for the right skill that you need. And the problem in India today that I know and we see is of people who are employable. You have a lot of people who are qualified, educated, and are available from their graduations, post-graduations, but are they having the required education or skill to be employable for what is required today? And this ties back to our education system. The technology changes have been much, and I think EduBridge and other companies like you are doing a good job of making people employable, but that is a big demand today. People need to be employable and available for the technology that is in demand today. Okay, that is a big gap in India today. And that's why the skill gap. You have a lot of unemployment, then the gap should not be there, right? But the reason is because they are not employable for the skill or technology that you need them for. That is something which I think is a problem even with our industry. And the kind of skills that we use is instructional designers, project managers, technology people in front end, back end technologies, not as high as what Capgemini does, but our technologies are more usual. But even then, there's a lot of gap. Then the other part of our training, so this industry of training has been there for about 25 years now. Yeah. It's not new. But today, how do you differentiate? You differentiate on design. You differentiate on the training being effective, right? And it obviously is competitive in the market. So you need a lot of design people, the people who can design the experience of users, which is a big gap. So I think all this put together, it gives a lot of opportunity to companies like EduBridge, who can bridge this gap for us and the other companies in the world. The pandemic has been a big boost for an industry like ours. But like I said, it's been there for 25 years, right? It's just that this has been one trigger to push it even further to grow. But were we prepared for it? Actually not. We were not prepared because this was not a planned move. We didn't know that some policy changes are happening and therefore we will do this. It was just a pandemic which came in and now we are getting. So what helped India and the other parts of the world is the telecom revolution, so that you had the bandwidth, you could see videos, you can do a Zoom call, everybody has a smartphone. So I think the infra that was there was fortunately in place because of the policymakers doing the right things in the last few years. But overall, there's a gap in skill and there's a long way to go, the 5G or whatever that comes in, it has to go down to all levels. At this point, it's limited to people who are in IT or related industries, and it's limited to cities which are connected well, but it has to go down and there's a big market for that. That's what I thought I'll start with sharing.
Everyone, and for our audience, all the organizations we hear from today, they are directly or indirectly enabling IT functions of other businesses and can be considered quite representative of the industry in general. So thanks everyone for sharing your thoughts. I'd just like to summarize, what we've heard from everyone. So I think remote working, collaboration, communication is clearly come out as an important piece, considering that most of us are working from home. As Mr. De Silva said, there is 5x demand for tech roles as compared to 2019, and the demand is clearly outstripping the supply. And there is a clear trend that, Mr. Arvind and Mr. Rivon, identified that there is a need for trained resources who can be deployed and, they're ready to work, they're productive from day one, rather than organizations needing to spend a couple of months in training them. And so it's the time to be agile and not follow, the older methodologies that were followed, like the waterfall methodology, etc. So this is clearly like hire, train, and deploy is going to be one of the key trends that we are going to see in the next couple of months. I think that line is, very useful for our audience. Students should remember that tech skills is a secret weapon. And, if you have that secret weapon, you will dominate, the workforce in the coming years. So that's a very important takeaway for all the students who've joined us. And overall, I think there is also an indication that the education system that we currently have and the government should support in whatever way they can to help with addressing the challenges that we have today with the skill gap in the industry. So thanks everyone. I think we'll move to our second topic of discussion. So now that we've discussed that there is a clear demand and there's a clear demand for tech roles, we want to understand, our students want to understand what are the key skills that tech corporates and recruiters in the IT sector look for in candidates apart from coding and domain specific skills. So this could be, the softer elements that a student is expected to have. So any thoughts on this will help our students, because they can then work on those skills and appear for their interviews. So over to you, Mr. Rakesh. We'll follow the same sequence. Yeah.
Thank you, Masha. So as the nature of work is changing with automations, millions of people may need to switch occupations and acquire new skills. So new skills becomes the key. The bottom line is improving for companies with higher efficiency and greater employee productivity. That's the key. While technologies such as AI, which is artificial intelligence, will replace many low-level tasks and even start moving up the chain, the role of humans is evolving for performing tasks to control the robots and systems. There will be significant reskilling of workers, starting from design thinking. I think that was missing earlier. So design thinking helps in transformations. So it's the start of the transformation actually, which has people, business, and technology. Next is information security. So a lot of people are working from home. The entire data security, networks, intrusion detections, that becomes the key. Next is employee experience, building more personalized experience. Because in case you are using a mobile or a tab or any applications, or like a most common thing, which is Facebook, it gives you a personalized experience. Even it's a work or education, you tend to look into that experience piece. So by saying this, I might like to say that technology is a critical enabler as we look future of life and work, which also means what you got you here won't get you there. Hence, it's time to rethink, reskill, and which is also applicable in all organization or business strategies. That means which was designed, in case you have technologies which was designed for another era, you'll have to change that. You have to start redesigning. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rakesh. Yes, Mr. De Silva.
I think Rakesh covered some very important points, right? I mean, outside your core application development, you talk about security, you talk about user experience, you talk about integration between apps and all that, right? So focusing on some of the softer aspects of it, right? I think it's given today that communication skills is very important because, as I said, your interactions with the clients are a lot more today. You know, earlier let's say we were at offshore, we were given a work package, complete it after a week, give the package back. But today the requirements are all very in flux, so you need to talk to the clients very regularly. And we have seen many cases where very smart, developers lose out just because they are not able to convey their message. So ability to convey their message is very, very important. The next thing that becomes very important, and I'll take this out from Rakesh's point, is reskilling. So I would take that as a word as adaptability, because technology is changing very fast. As I said, every 6 months there is something new. The customer will say, I want to try something new. I want to do something new. There are hardly anybody in the market. You do that, right? So if we do not adapt, even I at my levels find it so difficult if I'm not reading and keep the same pace. Because when a customer asks a question, say, what is your capability on this? It becomes very difficult. And customers today are very hands-on themselves.
Yeah.
Right? So they expect us also to be extremely hands-on. So adaptability is important. I mean, you just cannot say, hey, I am working on AI today, so I know everything. But what is coming up tomorrow? Okay, I need to be reading on my own. Maybe the project, in a project, it only teaches you up to 40 to 50%. The rest is our own effort. Okay. The third point, which I think is very important in today's world, specifically in this remote world, is how do we work as a team? Because in an agile world, your work is broken up. And at the end of the day, all of that has to come together, right? You are not building one module there in isolation or in the waterfall-like type of model. In an agile model, you might be building one method, which might have to coexist with many, many parts. So the time to rework, rechange either for you or for the other partner is going to be very less. So three skills of, these three things from a software side, I think are very, very important of how do you survive in this industry. You might have the best syntactical knowledge. Okay, one more point is algorithms and problem solving. Okay, how do I write code efficiently and faster? I think that is something our university programs, going with what Arun says, really lack in teaching us. We tend to focus more on syntax than on algorithms or problem solving, and that is what will help us in the real life world. Because what you can do in 20 lines, people are always searching, can I do it in 5? And that's how you'll meet the timelines also. So these, I think, are critical soft skills that we need to focus on. Of course, a lot of these come with experience, but we should be conscious of this.
Maya, if I can just come in for a second. I absolutely loved, Revon, what you said, and Rakesh, what you said. I think one line which stuck with me is when Rakesh said, what's got you here is not going to get you there. And I think that line is so critical for all of us as learners, and mostly for youth who are looking for starting out their careers, because a lot of times, we tend to live in this bubble of our own where we believe we know it all, where we believe that if we've got our first job, we sort of arrive. I think it's very important to hear from all of you industry leaders on how important it is to constantly learn, how important it is to understand that technology is changing and the world as we see it is changing every few months, I would say now. So it's very, very important for us to sort of constantly upskill ourselves and learn so that we are ready with those skills which will actually get us there, and not just live in past glory or, what we've done in the past to think that, we've achieved whatever we wanted to. I think, thank you so much for that. I think that's very, very insightful.
Absolutely, Girish. Absolutely.
I think you're on mute, Revon. I think you were saying something.
And Girish, just to add there, I have 5 dedicated trainers, and they are the ones who are learning the most to keep up pace with that. Right?
I can imagine.
They're learning, and every 3 months they're learning something new. So
I can imagine.
Every day.
Yeah.
And just Revon's point, on the early point, where he's talking about few specific skills. So I think data mapping specialist, data scientist, solution architect, a business analyst, and process improvement managers. I think these skills are also will come very soon. I mean, it's already in. I think people, instead of a coding, we also need to focus on all these things. because
Yeah.
data becomes key for anything which you do. Yeah.
So I just have another side to this story. Like there is where we are and where we are to get. Anyone who is trying to do that should first know where they want to get. I'm part of another organization, and there's a very nice term they use there. Most people are, what they do is dance of life. They just take what comes and what they believe is going to grow, and they can get some money and get big money and grow. But eventually what happens after a period of time of working for 5 or 10 years, the dissatisfaction and the frustration and all that creeps in. So the first thing people need to do is first decide on what their skill is, the core skill their liking is. And some of us think that if I do something which is to my liking, it will not give me enough money in life, because eventually you need to be employable, and it's all about earning money so that you can live a good life, right? Money is important. But along with that, happiness of what you do is also important. So if you are able to analyze yourself and see what your strengths are, if you're an analytical person, you're more a communicative person, you're more a reserved person. If a person is reserved, but there's a lot of opportunity in sales and he takes it, he's bound to fail in a few years, right? So it's not, the market demand is important, but are we made for it is also important, because that cannot be taught. So once you've done that analysis, believe me, there are n number of jobs and opportunities in those areas as well, which a lot of people are not aware of, right? I mean, I was part of that session where we said, how many jobs are there in this world? If you put everything, every micro job together, and I think the highest number some people quoted is to 4,000, 5,000. But apparently, even I didn't know there are 22,000 job opportunities, different job opportunities where people can go to. And it gives them decent money enough. It's like a gap between a Mercedes and a BMW. Whether you will get a Mercedes or a BMW, you don't know. But that needs to be in you as a skill, right? Everybody cannot be the first. So in the race of getting there, we end up burning out and doing things which does not keep us happy, and that does not take us too long. And then we have these mid-career issues where people fall out. So the people who are on this listening on what they should do, first step is to analyze what your strengths are and what is it you like to do. And then in that domain, look for things which are opportunities, and then skill yourself to those opportunities. I mean, that's how I look at it. And I've realized a little late in life, I mean, because there was no guidance then, and I did what I had to do. But then now I settle down to what I like to do, and I am an entrepreneur by nature. So I'm doing a job with the company, but the role is entrepreneurial. It gives them the opportunity to explore myself as an entrepreneur. It gives me that freedom. I think that's important.
Fabulous. Thank you, Mr. Samani, for your thoughts. So for the benefit of our students, who are listening to us today, I'll just quickly summarize, what everybody said. I think one thing that clearly comes out is, the ability of students to adapt and the attitude of continuous learning. And basically, what I hear is, people who are willing to learn, grow, and evolve will fare way better than somebody who got started with, all the technical skills that were required at that point in time. The second thing is, how do we work as a team? So communication, collaboration, because most of us are working from home, that also it's almost like a life skill now that we are, in the middle of this pandemic. The third thing that Mr. De Silva highlighted was that communication skills is very important, because even more than before, we are communicating with clients. So everyone who takes up these job roles needs to be able to communicate well, both in verbal and written English language. Finally, we all said that problem solving and logical reasoning is extremely important, because there are a lot of jobs, a lot of data analysis and those kind of jobs. So problem solving and logical reasoning is a key skill that students need to have. Resilience, attitude, what Mrs. Somani just mentioned, that the ability to reflect, the ability to introspect, understand your own strengths and weaknesses, map it on the jobs that are available in the market, and how happy you are, with what you've chosen, is a very important factor in choosing your career. And we all need to, everybody sort of needs to keep moving up the value chain through continuous learning, is to sort of summarize it. And for this, a lot of reskilling will be needed, a lot of upskilling will be needed. So everyone who's listening to us here today, remember that, irrespective of what you already know and irrespective of where you stand today, every few months, every 6 months, something new comes up. So you'll have to constantly, keep upskilling yourself to stay relevant for today's world. So concluding this topic, I'd like to move on now to the next topic that we had planned for the day, was to, so based on, what everyone is doing in their respective organizations, we would like to identify some of the top 3-4 job roles that have become very popular recently, and what is the scope of growth for these in the future. So in fact, a part of this Mr. Rakesh has already touched upon. Like he mentioned that it's not just the coding and the programming jobs that we should look at. It's the data analytics, data science. Those are the kind of jobs, because like we discussed in the beginning, every organization is now needing to have a tech function. And there's huge amounts of data that is available that can be analyzed and fed back into business decision making. So clearly, the data analysis kind of roles are becoming important. Mr. De Silva, in one of the questions, he spoke about full stack developers. So these are the two that, we can already pick from what we've spoken about. So like that, if we can identify top 4-5 job roles within the IT sector that you think are trending right now and are likely to have immense scope in the months to come, this piece of information will be extremely useful for our students. Yes, over to you, Mr. Rakesh.
So I think with this, in this context, I think 3 roles come in my mind actually. One is mobile applications developer, because in all organizations, all the applications are moving on mobile. We are going digital, right? Second is the cloud architect, because all data from on-prem is moving to cloud, and we are touching across boundaries so that there is no data lag, there is less investment on the infrastructure. So cloud architecture is taking a leap. And lastly, I like to talk about the network administrator, who manages the entire network throughout entire organization. In my mind, these 3 roles will be the key in technology right now.
Yeah, so in my case, if I were to just pick, okay, what's impacting me right now or what I'm looking for most right now are 3 types of roles, right? As I said, one is obviously the full stack developer. Then I have the microservices cloud native developer. And the third one is UI developers. These 3 together will easily form around 60 to 70% of my demand. And I'm sure across the industry, these 3 also are the most wanted.
Yeah, for us in the education space, it's a technical, non-technical mix. The topmost is actually a non-technical role, which is instructional design. There's a lot of good instructional design requirement, which is there. And the other is about front-end developers, which is into HTML5, Angular, and all that kind of technologies. And UI UX is also a very important one, because the experience that users look today is much different, and they are much more educated and much more spoiled for choices. So like, I mean, you see people on YouTube, Netflix, any of these social media platforms, the way they move, the way they interact, the way the responsiveness is. So they expect that, they're used to that. So if you make learning, if you need to make learning effective for them, it needs to be on those lines. What people are used to, what people can experience and have fun with. And the biggest challenge today, which we need to overcome by UX, is the attention span of people earlier used to be anything from 45 minutes to 1 hour for a training. Today is 5 to 10 minutes. If you do anything more than 10 minutes, people get distracted. The attention span is too less. I mean, the training which corporates impart is for the benefit of the people, for them to grow. Even then, people just cannot stand more than 5-10 minutes of effective. It needs to be so engaging to keep them hooked. So like, I agree to the other panelists who said that the experience, the UI part of it is important. But yeah, I mean, these are our top roles, and we are always in requirement for these. There's another one which is non-technical again, which is subject matter experts. They earlier, the organizations we worked with had the SMEs to create the content, and then we were developers. But in today's world, they expect us to even generate content, create content, you know. So we also need a lot of subject matter experts in AI, ML. Like even today, I'm looking for experts in AI, ML, who can be a part of our call next week to talk to our client about. So it's like, when you want a training to be developed, the client also expects you to know what you're talking about, what you're training, right? So the subject matter experts tie in with us to help us give the confidence to clients so that we can do that training for them. And then the back end obviously happens, and we are experts at that. So that's how it is.
Thank you, Mr. Somani. So I think that's a lot of roles for our students. So I'll just quickly repeat the roles, and I'm sure we'll be able to help the students map on, like, for example, if you said mobile applications developer, now our students obviously would want to know that, what is the starting, because do they get started as developers? Do they get started as, web developers, software developers? So, the students who are here with us today, if you need help in sort of mapping these roles on what these mean at the entry level, and if you want to understand, then just stay on, put your questions, and we'll be happy to help you. So we have mobile applications developers, we have cloud architects, network administrators, full stack developers, microservices, cloud native developers, instruction design, UI, UX developers, data analysts, AI, ML, subject matter experts, and so on. So thanks everyone for sharing this with us. Now, finally, now that we've spoken about the need, for tech roles in today's world, we've spoken about the specific roles that we see flourishing in the coming months. We've also understood what are some of the key skills that are needed, for the students to crack these roles. I think it's, we would now like to understand from you how the interview process has changed in organizations since the pandemic hit us, considering that now everything is happening online. How are candidates being pre-screened now? What are the new processes, methodologies that are being used by HRs to make the right selections? What are the tools you're using, and what kind of innovation is being required to ensure that the quality of hires that you're making today remain parallel to when the face-to-face interviews were a standard practice? So anything you want to share with respect to the actual interview process selections, because again, this will be very useful for our students to understand. Over to you.
Thank you. So in EXL, it's a BPM company, and there are a lot of people get hired on a monthly basis. Approximately in India, there are 450 hires, okay? Because we are 22,000 people in India. So pre-pandemic, people used to walk-ins, and we used to focus on hiring within Delhi NCR or wherever EXL offices are, like a Pune or a Kochi or a Tamil Nadu. Then with pandemic, I mean, many companies have moved to digital recruitment platforms. So did EXL as well, which helped us to move more candidates in much more effective and time-saving way. Basically, the value proposition lies in providing access to candidates across geographies, which is 3 tier cities as well, and minimize travel, budget, capacity constraints, or recruitment professionals, especially during pandemic. There are 6 key things which we focused on. Right? One is that build optimal recruitment strategy, which is starting from sourcing till screening, hiring, until engaging as well. It's not only just getting a candidate. Bring in technology that reduces time to hire by automating your entire recruitment efforts. Third, get visual into large talent pool, because if you go digital, you have a reach to the masses and you get talented people. Then ask customized questions to the candidates using an on-demand video interview platforms. Then access response, body language, personality just over the app. So there are a lot of applications which gives you feature to measure all these pieces. And lastly, assess their skills and talent on personality, aptitude, cognitive assessment, and communication skills. In some organization, digital onboarding becomes an integrated part of hiring process, which means digital onboarding helps to build a world-class employee experience, which mainly focuses on 3 areas. One is employee experience, comprehensive induction in information, and connect new hire rapidly with the company in settling down. So I think this is the entire move which EXL has taken, and I'm sure a lot of companies are also moving ahead.
Yeah, so I'm seeing a lot of change, and I think this change will be here to stay, irrespective of face-to-face or remote type of an interview pattern. AI is used quite a lot at the time of pre-screening the profiles. Now, whether we do that manually or whether we use a tool to do that, the thing is, what people are looking for is, show me that you have done that particular technology, you have done some work. Many a times what we tend to do is we list the whole list of technologies that we have been trained on, but that does not showcase. If you really want your CV to stand out, it's really important to show what you have done, how you have used technology to solve a problem. Okay, I have built a NoSQL database to do this, because there are so many CVs that come in, right? People just say NoSQL, that, and all they must have done is store data into it. But if you are like a database specialist, you got to say that, hey, I have done the entire schema, I have done the entire configuration, the security model. So the CV needs to project that, and AI tools have been geared up to catch up those type of profiles. So how the way you write the CV is very important. Second thing, I think a lot of the interviews have changed now from asking just technical syntax based questions to a lot of logarithmic, right? In fact, in one of my departments, I know that the client insists that there is this online tool called HackerRank, which you have to really write like an end-to-end case, a use case, you got to develop, and it scores it. So what does that mean? That you've got to be hands-on. Theoretical knowledge can easily be learned. If you look at any of the webs, you can see 1,000 Angular questions, right? But the thing now is, how do I write a program in Angular, which gets rated by a tool to see, okay, how modular is your code, what are your coding standards, and all those type of things. Suddenly, all this becomes important from day one. The typical pattern is, I know how to write code, I won't care about JUnit, right? But today's HackerRank will say, okay, how much of coverage do you have? And I'll give you points for that. So you need to be an all-rounder from day one, right? So these two things are a big change that I see, wherein people are saying, hackathons, You see a lot of companies doing hackathons also, right? But today it's not possible in a remote world. But ideally, yes, come to a place, write these things. Here is a use case. Tell us what you can do, and suddenly you have a lot of talent rather than asking this monotonous questions, right? I think those you will see that happening more and more. So being more hands-on, being more immersive, bringing all of that out on your CV rather than keywords is very very key.
Yeah, from like what we spoke earlier, the status today is that we are short of people than compared to what we want. So it's kind of hiring for projects. Like you're hiring while the project is on, right? So in most cases, to cut down the process of interviewing to hiring, which earlier used to take a month, and you used to say that, okay, we'll get back to you in a week, 10 days, we have your CVs. That doesn't help in today's world. The candidates also expect responsiveness to be like a day or two, you know, because in this world of working from home, there is no limitations to working from a particular city or a location. So if a candidate or person is really good, they will get enough opportunities from all over. So from our perspective, what has changed is we need to be on our toes, responsive. If we like someone, say yes. If we say no, we say no. The response time is improved a lot. So our rest of the process till the time it comes to doing the last interview was always virtual only. So not much has changed for us from that perspective.
Okay.
But the last stage in law, I think every case, because city was the dependency and people were there in that city, remote hiring was not so much popular. So we used to have face-to-face for the last lab before finalizing. Now that has gone away. So the impact of this more than anyone is even after selection, that person joining or not joining. Because there is no connect. Earlier, people used to come into office, see the whims and fancies of it, like it, dislike it, have a few friends there if they've met, known, all that used to happen. Now that doesn't happen. It's just a Zoom call, maybe one person with a background like this is not even real. So there is no connect to anyone staying with even after getting offers. So it's become, I think, HR job more difficult and more this responsible that they have to keep engagement on, give all the whatever is virtually feasible to the individual in terms of convincing about the job being right and they being getting into something which is nice and the company and the all that. So I think from that perspective, the changes happened that the last lag is missing. Therefore, the responsibility of HR or the line managers who are hiring to connect with individuals, keep them engaged if the person is positive for hiring and make sure that they join. Because last year, what we have seen is a lot of people, the people leaving us in the first 6 months of joining is the largest ever, which is like unknown in the past, where if people join, they would not leave so early, which is a big thing for recruiters and companies that they need to keep in watch of. And it's all about brand building and like a big brand like which is already popular and has the market share in that and visibility. There people, if it's a Google, they would not do this, but any other B and C level companies, they have this big risk. So I think that is what has changed in this virtual world. And the responsibility of HR and line on the last lag, plus till the people join and then for a while that they get comfortable with is become important. The other one part which is there, which earlier also we managed in some cases is the technical interviews of developers. They needed to give tests. So in such cases, we would call them into office because you want to see that they're doing it actually and all that kind of thing. We don't believe people, right? So, but now there is no option, but we have to rely on tools where it's about the way they do in school, right? The exams, they need to sit in front of the camera and movements are tracked and all that kind of stuff. But it's all that somehow is managed. But I think, yeah, the biggest part is the last lag and then the retention after that.
Great. Thanks so much, everybody. So in this particular topic, I think there are three things that we discussed. One is on the process, where it's clear that a lot of artificial intelligence is being used, whether we use it manually or whether we use it through a proper app or solution. Everyone's using new tools, be it for screening of candidates or a tool that facilitates video interviews. That facilitates digital onboarding to make the onboarding experience nice. So all of this is in terms of the process. Then we spoke about some trends that you've observed, with respect to hiring in the last couple of months. For example, you said that the response times have reduced, so there's more agility in the selection and the rejection process. You also mentioned that the number of joinings have reduced because obviously when a student is being interviewed on Zoom, there is less connect. So you've had some challenges with respect to the number of students actually joining in after they've gotten selected. Mr. Somani also said that they've witnessed like a higher attrition in the last 6 months for whoever has joined it. So there is definitely a need for brand building. There is definitely a need to make that entire recruitment and onboarding experience very nice for the students. So there is maximum retention. And finally, the takeaways for the students here are that you need to have a very good CV. When you apply for a job, because whether the resume is actually it's seen by through artificial intelligence, either manually or through a system. However it's being sort of viewed at for shortlisting, you should be able to make the cut there. So please focus on your CV. One good thing right now is that the pool has increased. So for the recruiters, you being able to consider candidates from all over for work from home positions, and likewise for students, the number of opportunities that are available is massive, because even the opportunities in other cities have opened up for you, which wouldn't have sort of opened up if you were if everybody was not working from home. So I think overall, I think it was a fabulous session, and we covered a lot of topics, related to tech roles, how companies are interviewing for those roles, what are the key skills, and so on. So thank you, everybody. We'll just take a look. Mamta, do we have any questions that we want to take right now?
Yes, we actually do have some interesting questions here. The first few questions, Maya, look at the chat.
So someone has asked a question, how to become, okay, let's take the other one. What is the future of open source and web development?
Yeah, I can take that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
I think open source will continue to be the backbone, okay, because open source is growing at a much faster rate in terms of adoption rate as compared to some of the commercial software, right? So open source will be the backbone of technology for a couple of years to come, okay? But when we learn a technology, we don't necessarily learn it because it's an open source or a commercial thing, right? It's what projects you get assigned to. But then to answer to the other question, right, how do you make it adaptable? I mean, it's a linked answer. How to become adaptable to emerging new technologies? And the answer there is your foundation. Okay, so for example, today, if I'm a very strong Angular developer, and tomorrow there's a new technology or there is something emerging called Vue, things don't change radically between them. As an Angular developer, you learn MVC as a concept. You learn error handling as a concept, right? You learn few concepts which actually are almost 80% carried on from technology to technology. Okay, as you go higher and higher or into much more emerging technologies, they are better, they are more efficient to use, they are more well interconnected. So things become easy. But if you do not know the underlying plumbing, so if your foundation is not strong, then adapting to any technology becomes a problem. But I strongly encourage even all the people in my team, whatever work you are doing currently, you might be using hardly 5 or 10 constructs of the given language at any given point of a day. But if you, that hardly covers 40%. It's like when you read a Java book, you know, the Java complete reference, we always tend to read the first 5 chapters and say, hey, we know Java. But it's the remaining 5 chapters which tell you what to do and what not to do when. And we never tend to do that, right? Unless it fails in a project.
Yeah.
But if you were to read those last 5 project things, then tomorrow when you're doing Scala, the concepts are the same. It's all about best practices, is experience. It's the experience that counts rather than syntax. Yeah.
Great. Thanks. There's another question that we can take. Based on the job trends, what would be a tentative ratio of jobs which are technology based versus core engineering based? I think my guess is this means the full stack kind of roles versus the roles which require a little bit of tech here and there and analytics kinds. I mean, your thoughts on this, please.
So like in my organization, we have both, you know, pure IT departments like mine, custom software or an SAP. And then we have a core engineering team also who are basically building this automated car and all those type of things, where you have a lot of embedded software for the lifts, software for the pacemakers, right? Which goes into the heart. Today, your pacemakers are all connected to your phones, right? You need to write a lot of embedded software. For me, yeah, in my definition, that is core engineering, where you need to write a lot of embedded software, C++, VC++. On the other side is your normal app development, whether it's on your mobile apps or, you know, your Angular, and that is my thing. In terms of ratio, see, at the underlying of core engineering is, unless you are doing a biomechanical type of an engineer, right? Or some of it is mechanical, robotics and all that coming into play. Okay. But at the end of it, it's all software pieces only that is residing on that physical component. So my guess, and I'm just calling out, but for somebody in the DEMS in my engineering team would say, oh, it's 80% engineering, 20% software. For me, it's exactly the opposite, right? I am like 90% software and 20%, but it's more industry and in which department you're a part of.
Fair enough. Thank you. I think since we've sort of almost overshot the time frame, if so the students can stay back, we can interact with them and answer their questions and anything else also that you may have. And I thank all our speakers here today for being with us. It was a fun interaction. Thank you so much. Over to you, Mamta.
Well, absolutely. It has been a fun session for not just us. I think it's all the participants who have been bombarding us with questions right now. Well, I would like to first of all, just mention that in case any of you speakers are pressed on time and have other commitments, we would not like to keep you engaged here for so long. So you can leave the chat, and we'd be glad to answer the remaining questions from the audience. Before you go, however, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to Mr. Kumar, Mr. Somani, Mr. De Silva, Mr. Pratap, Girish sir, and Maya for enriching session. I would like to thank my entire team at EduBridge who was sincerely committed to make this event a success. A special mention to Parth sir and Manisha Prakash, who have helped tremendously in reaching out to the audiences for this event. And lastly, it gives me immense pleasure to acknowledge the presence of the entire community of people participating in this event today. This event would not have been possible without the support of each and every one of the participants who is present here. Well, as promised earlier, you will receive an email with a giveaway details in relation to our IT courses. So if anybody is interested, you can reach out to us through that email, or you can just reach us at the mobile numbers mentioned, on our website, and we'll be able to, get back to you and address all your queries there. So thank you once again, everyone. Have a great evening. Thank you all speakers once again. And I am here for another half an hour for all the attendees in case they have any questions and we can address them.
Thanks, everyone. It was nice talking to all of you all. Wish you all the best and stay safe.
Thank you, Raman. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting.
Thank you, Arvind.
I think the process of connecting with us and getting us on board is quite smooth in the last 2-3 days. Generally, it takes much longer, but you guys have been very responsive on any queries. And as part of your education platforms, which you are going to work on and get people, hopefully train them for good. If there's any support on that front that you ever need, just connect with us, because we
Thank you so much.
Sure, Mr. Kumari.
Thank you.
I'm
Thank you.
absolutely sure
Thank
we'll
you.
reach out.
Thank
to
you so much. Bye.
Thank you. Sir, if you would like to drop out as well, I think Maya and you.
Thank you,
can
everyone.
drop
Thank
out.
you so much. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks. So how do we do this now? Can
So
we make
have
some of
other
the
questions
students
here as well. So if you see, we have a question from Sebel Mitra based on the job trends. What would be the ratios? Something that we've already answered. There was a
Yeah.
question from Aditi Sutar on how to become adaptable with emerging new technologies.
So I'll tell you, a lot of these other questions I didn't take up then because I felt like they were covered in the session. So I'm sort of happy to repeat because I've taken notes from the session. So I'm happy to repeat it. So Aditi, how to become adaptable with emerging new technologies. I think like some of our panelists mentioned, you know, you have to be a continuous learner. Like you have to be a person who keeps on reading, keeps on learning. Even if you're working on a particular project right now, which needs you to learn some language, like learn some coding language, you shouldn't stop there and you shouldn't look at it like it's the end point for you. You have to keep reading. You have to keep on embracing technology. And you know what you should do is join upskilling courses from time to time. I mean, if you're already working, you can join upskilling courses from time to time. You can go to a lot of YouTube videos that are available. I mean, you'll see a lot of videos available on our YouTube channel as well, and several other education companies also have their YouTube videos. So get into that habit of, you know, spending half an hour, 1 hour a day in just upgrading yourself. I think that's going to make you extremely adaptable with new emerging technologies. Then we have, what trends do you think are the most important in a developer or other relevant IT position? So see, apart from the core skill that you have, apart from the core skill that you're trained on, you know, the domain skills that you're trained on. So let's say you're a full stack Java developer or you are a data analyst. Apart from the domain skills, you know, there was a list of skills that, you know, they had pointed out in the chat today, that you need to work on your communication skills. You need to, hold on, I'll just pull out my list. You need to work on your problem solving and logical reasoning skills. I think that's also very important for you being able to clear your interviews. You need to be a continuous learner. You need to keep reflecting on you know what you've been doing, and keep introspecting and checking if this is the right role for you. So apart from the domain skills that are needed for that particular job, you really need to, you know, you need to be well groomed. You need to be well spoken. You need to be able to crack the logical reasoning, aptitude, you know, questions and the tests that are given to you when you're joining any interview. So work on these other soft skills, and then you should be able to crack any interview. Yeah. I think, Mamta, now,
So I think the next, I think we can just take one last question here. If you, you know, look at the last question that we have here. What skills or characteristics make someone an effective remote worker? I think this is not just for the students, it is also very valid to, you know, all the people working in EduBridge, as well as all the other organizations are looking this way.
Yes, absolutely. So I think this is a great question. I think what makes us an effective remote worker in my mind is, you know, one is your discipline and sincerity with which you work. So people should be able to, you know, reach out to you. You should, there should be a certain, everyone should know, you know, when you're going to be available and when you're not going to be available. I think that's one of the key challenges we face when we are working from home. So a disciplined schedule, a proper schedule is going to make you a good remote worker. You should also be quite tech savvy, like you should be able to use your Zoom, Microsoft Teams properly. put your video on, when you're taking work calls with anybody. Make sure you're audible. So a little bit of tech savviness helps here. You should also understand a little bit of, data security, because you'll be, you're sort of online all the time. And I think what happens with work from home is, we lose sight of the softer elements. We just go on with our daily rut of life, and that emotional connect with our team members, emotional connect with our clients, that sense of belongingness to an office space it's not there anymore, right? So even when you're working, you should maybe call your colleagues once in a while, casually catch up with them, try to have those coffee table kind of, the kind of conversations we used to have in office when we, went out for a chai. Those are the conversations you should try to just casually call someone and have, and that will make you an effective remote worker. Mamta, please add anything if you want to.
Well, I definitely feel it's definitely a learning journey for all of us to have, overnight shifted from a physical space or a physical office space to working with your colleagues around you and trying to understand their body language, to now moving to an online world where we are trying to just look at faces and trying to determine what's going on, with the person who's opposite you on the video camera. So it's definitely been a shift, but I think slowly and steadily, the whole of India is adopted to this technology, and now it's become, a very stable kind of a practice across organizations. So I'm sure from when people started to remote working to now, there has been a tremendous shift, and people are adopting to the methodology very, very clearly and very, very, open-heartedly. So I think that actually covers, answering that question. Definitely it does. Any more questions that we can address? Or maybe you have my you have my email ID on the screen. So any other attendees who have any more questions, you can please direct them at this email address. I will personally answer them. And if possible, I will send them to the relevant contact who can get in touch with you. So please share your email ID and please share your contact number so that we can get in touch with you and answer any other queries that you might have even after the session has ended.
Yeah.
So
and we also urge you to go visit the website. There is a chat on the website. You can come there as well, if you have any queries. And please leave your, phone number, your email ID on this chat. As many of you as whoever's looking to get upskilled, in any of the IT courses, please put your phone number and email ID here so we can reach out to you, as Mamta said.
Sure. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Have a great evening and connect with me if you do have any questions. Thank you so much, Maya, for spending your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nitin, and thank you, everyone, for the support. Thank you so much. Nitin, do you have all the details, everyone? I think I'll just wait for another 5 minutes. Maya, you can actually drop off if you.
Yeah, we have some questions like, what is the minimum course cost? Anonymous attendee, sorry, if you could put your email ID and number, we'll give you a call and we can tell you what the course costing is. Is there any special criteria to apply in company for a handicapped student? Nikita, please, all our courses are for everybody. So please, do apply, do send in your request and we'll give you the details, whatever you need. We still have 106 participants, 160
That's right.
participants.
We are still getting a lot of questions. This is amazing.
You said on LinkedIn there is some discount. Yes, there is a 20% discount, I believe, on all the tech courses that we have listed on our website. So please go to edubridgeindia.com and just fill in the form there. So if you go to EduBridge India, you will see there is a registration form. You just have to fill in your name and everything, and that, and then we'll be in touch with you after that. Nikita has given. So Mamta, are we noting these numbers down, or will this be saved as transcripts, because we don't want to lose?
So I'm actually sharing this with Nitin as well. So we are keeping a tab on all
So
the details.
Sanjana, Nikita have given their mobile numbers, right? So maybe you've taken a note of that, right?
Yes.
Okay. And to all the students, who are still here, I urge you to go to the website. Mamta, do you want to just share screen and show the website and the process once? I think it'll make it super convenient for everyone to go and register on the website.
Sure. I'll just share my screen. My bad.
Okay, Mamta, I'll log off and I'll initiate the other.
Yeah. Just a second. Nitin, can you share your screen? I think that is fluctuating.
The EduBridge website? Yeah, give me a minute.
the EduBridge.
I'll share the screen.
Great. Sure. I see some requests on chat. Kiritika, we already have your details. One of the placement managers will get in touch with you. Aishwarya Mahadik, thank you so much. I am glad that you liked the session today. Amrita Banerjee, yes, we do have skilling and upskilling courses in finance, specifically into, not just into retail banking, but we also have microfinance, we have loan approval officers, a lot of other courses that would be of interest to you as well. Vrishali, we have your email ID. We will definitely get in touch with you. I think I also have your mobile number, and we have your email ID as well. So this will be taken down, and we will get in touch with you. Thank you, Priyanka, so much. We are glad that you liked the session. It was very informative. We do agree to that as well. Kiritika, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm glad that you love my smile. Gifty, thank you so much. Again, Mustari Begum, thank you. Lavanya, Muhammad Yasir Arafat, Muhammad Rafiq, thank you so much. Kiritika, we have your number down. Vijay Kasote, I think you're one of our trainers. Thank you so much, everyone. Anil Kumar, we are definitely glad that you liked the information shared in today's session. Really helpful. Yasakya, thank you so much, sir. And if there is anybody that I missed, I'm so sorry. But you can definitely, share your views, your feedback, your suggestions. And as you can see on your screens, you can actually see our website. You can see you can book a free session with us. You can go to chat and chat with one of us. You can actually go ahead and register and look at all the courses that we are offering. So it's not just about free courses or paid courses. It is about improving your skills. It is about improving your knowledge. So it's not just about IT. We have many other sectors in which we offer courses and offer placement assistance as well. So you can definitely go back to our website, refer your friends. You can definitely get in touch with us in case you'd like to change your sector altogether. If you're not happy with your current job, if you're not happy with where you are in your life today or in your professional life today, in fact, if there is anything at all that we can help you with, because EduBridge does take care of the entire career development life cycle of a student. So you can definitely go ahead, visit the website, and you'll be able to see, a lot of information here that you can click. Okay. Hariharan Shri, Hariharan from Bangalore. I think you already have your details. The placement manager will definitely get in touch with you. Thank you so much, Jyotishwari. We have already, kept your details with us, and we will also get in touch with you. In case there are any questions unanswered, please let us know. I think all the other questions I have answered through either chat or either the question answer session. So if you do have any other questions, please let us know. Okay, great. So I think, Nitin, that pretty much covers the session for today. Thank you so much, everyone. Please get in touch with us if you do have any queries. Thank you so much.